The nearly 2-week-long partial shutdown of the Federal Aviation Administration appears to be over, at least for now. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid announced that his chamber will pass a House bill tomorrow authorizing funding for the FAA through mid-September. That will allow some 74,000 transportation and construction employees to get back to work, but a long-term funding solution remains elusive. Todd Zwillich is the Washington correspondent for The Takeaway, a program on Public Radio International. He's been covering the story closely and joins us now. Once again, welcome back.
Good to be with you.
So, first question is, how did this suddenly come together? We thought everybody was gone, right?
Bilateral temporary disarmament is what we have here. Both the House and the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, have been at a standoff for about 2 weeks over this. And right around the time the debt limit bill was getting done, remember that? Yes. Remember how much energy that took? Yeah. This was lingering in the background, and a lot of people ignored it. Reporters ignored it. A lot of members of Congress ignored it because they were just worrying about much bigger things. Well, when the debt deal got settled and the Senate was in for one more day, it came time to end the standoff or not.
All right. Now what I said was the Senate is going to pass a House bill.
Correct.
Now, what does that mean, and what's the deal here?
Well, the Senate is actually not on recess technically, so they can do this very easily tomorrow, wave of the gavel, it's done. Mm-hmm. Part of the standoff was that the House had passed a temporary authorization bill for the next 6 weeks, but they legislated on that. They made some changes to a rural air service subsidy that's a little bit of a bone of contention, but it's not even that controversial. Senators were upset because it's not usually done. You don't usually legislate on a temporary authorization. So the reason I call this bilateral temporary disarmament is the Senate, which had refused to accept the House language, has now said, we'll accept it, fine. However, here's why it's bilateral disarmament. The Senate accepts the House bill, which previously they had refused to do, but the Obama administration comes to Democrats' rescue, uses a waiver provision in the bill to say even though the law will be on the books to get rid of this subsidy that you guys want to keep, the Secretary of Transportation can waive it for all these airports.
Now, wait a minute. I'm going to try to say this clearly to make sure I got it, because the House bill took out the subsidies for these.
Some of them.
Some of them.
Yeah, for only about 13 airports.
The Senate now says, okay, we will accept that, but
it doesn't have to go into effect?
It doesn't go into effect because the Transportation Secretary can waive that provision and allow the funding.
Can waive it for one or all of the airports. The Obama administration has not said that he'll waive it for all 13 or 15 airports that could be affected, but he has the discretion to do so. Keep in mind that these airports are in places like Nevada, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, West Virginia, Transportation Chairman Jay Rockefeller, and other places around the country. So Ray LaHood, the Transportation Secretary, will have the authority now to enforce this bilateral temporary disarmament.
Did he not have that authority before?
It was always in the House bill. He always could have done this. The problem, and Republicans were saying all along, the Secretary can do this if he wants to. Really, the problem was the stick in the eye of senators because the House had legislated where they don't usually legislate, and also, as we've talked about before, a union issue in the background, not on this bill, but on a larger bill that was really a bone of contention between Republicans and Democrats, which still has to be fought out. It is not settled.
Yeah, now,
that'll be back.
Now, so where does that stand? That is just unresolved.
That's unresolved. It won't be resolved, and they're going to fight it out in September. This bill only gets us to September, and when it runs out, that issue comes back on a broader FAA bill, and that's about union rules, Obama administration rules that govern who gets to vote and not vote when an airline or a railway unionizes, about which workers have their votes count. And it's contentious. This is party ideology, unions versus management.
Now, the Senate comes in tomorrow, passes this quickly. How soon do all these workers get back to work?
The next work day, which ostensibly would be Monday, workers can start getting back to work at the FAA. Now, keep in mind, the 4,000 workers at the FAA can go right back to work. They're government workers. 70,000 private sector workers who work for construction companies whose contracts have been suspended because of this mess might not get back to work so fast because it might take a little bit of red tape and some doing to get those contracts going again.
There was clearly a lot of public pressure here. Was this driven by embarrassment in the end, or as you said, there was so much going on, it just got pushed aside, but then it got a lot of attention.
It got a lot of attention because the debt deal was done and then it was laid bare, and everyone could see it. There was a little bit of pressure mounting. There was a backbencher member of Congress, a fellow named Peter LaTourette from Ohio, who's not well known, but called a press conference today because he was fed up. He even used some language that I don't want to use on your broadcast to describe how fed up he was, and wanted to embarrass people to get it done, on both sides of the aisle, by the way, not just Democrats.
All right, Todd Zwillich, thanks again.
My pleasure.
Okay.